Hi everyone, I'm Paul Reiffer. I'm a commercial landscape and cityscape photographer. I'm also a Phase 1 and Capture 1 ambassador. And today we're going to run through some tips and tricks, effectively, of managing our memory cards out in the field, how we make sure all of our data is secure and how we bring it back to base in a way that's easy to find what we want to later on, many years down the line. So first things first, let's talk about when we're actually shooting out in the field and how we make sure our data is as secure as possible. And every time, obviously, we're out in the field, so whether that's on a mountain, on a rooftop, even on a commercial job and somewhere remote, the risk is that we lose our data. So everything I'm going to start talking about to begin with is about losing data. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is protecting those memory cards. So before we even start talking about putting them into a camera, let's talk about how we transport them. So tip number one, buy yourself a memory card case. They're cheap as chips compared to the price of your actual memory cards. Get one with a rubber gasket inside. What that means is that it allows it to have a certain amount of water resistance. It's not designed to go diving with. But what it does mean is if you drop this in a stream, or more importantly, someone drops a beer on this, it protects the contents and they're going to be safe and sound inside. With your memory cards, obviously they've become more and more secure and stable over the years. They've become shock proof and temperature proof and water resistant to a certain extent, but this allows me not only to organize my cards, also to find them all because they're all in this pouch, but also just protects them from any shocks or damage or running over or whatever by accident. So that's our memory cards looked after on their way to the shoot. Let's go to our shoot. And next thing, if your cameras, this is my Phase 1 XF camera, it has a function which I would encourage all of you to use if you've got the function on your camera, which is dual card shooting. What that doesn't mean is the function that a lot of people have enabled, which is it records fully onto one card and then when it runs out, it moves on to the second card. Use it in a way that archives. So this camera is set to record onto primary card first, and at the same time, record a copy onto a secondary card. Which means that if either of these cards becomes corrupt in the camera, sometimes the file system can become corrupt, I've got a spare, I've got a backup immediately in the camera. If you don't have dual shoot capability, don't worry too much. These things have become very, very, very stable and secure over the years anyway. But it's just one feature that if you have the function on your camera, please enable it. It's going to save you an awful lot of worry. That worry helps in terms of things getting corrupted. What it doesn't help with is things like if the camera were to get knocked off somewhere high, and you lose the card for that reason, or it gets lost or stolen, worse. If I've got both of my cards in the camera, it doesn't matter whether I shot on one card, two cards, five cards, I've lost the content that I had. So here's the next thing which we've really got to consider, which is we've got to get a copy somewhere safe as soon as possible when we're shooting. And what that means is if I'm shooting on one card, this is critical until the point that I've got a secondary copy somewhere else. If I'm shooting on two cards, I might choose to cycle the second card. So I might choose to have a very large capacity first card and cycle the second card in small chunks so that if anything were to happen to the camera while I'm shooting, I've got somewhere else, somewhere safe, maybe in another memory card holder, all of the shots that I took up until that point. So on a week-long shoot, we may be able to get away with one very high-capacity XQD card, but you might find that I've got several SD cards from every single day's shoots stored somewhere else safe. Okay, the second we've managed to get back to base, whether that's a hotel, tent, office, whatever, it doesn't really matter. First thing we're going to try and do is get that data somewhere safe and secure outside of the environment of a memory card. So a lot of people will choose to back up onto their laptop. Absolutely no problem with that. I do as well. What I tend to find is the laptop ends up a little bit messy, a little bit full, because I tend not to delete anything because I always want to maybe keep hold of it just in case I want to edit it again in future. So what I would invest in, if you don't have one already, is an external hard drive. Now, external hard drives, they became popular when they got to about this size. These were the Western Digital ones, which were 2.5-inch drives inside. Portable at the time, this is a few years ago, but they were still pretty clunky. Nowadays, there is no excuse not to have an external option, and one of the reasons is because of size. So this is the latest ones from Samsung. These are about the thickness of 8 to 10 credit cards. They weigh nothing. You can get half a terabyte, 2 terabytes for less than you can buy one of the memory cards nowadays that are 128 gig. So as a backup device, these are worth investing in. If you want to go further, SanDisk have launched their Extreme range quite recently. That Extreme range is shockproof, waterproof. Again, don't go swimming with it, but it is at least water resistant. it's designed to actually go on a key ring, so it's designed to be beaten around a little bit. These things, again, 2 terabytes in the palm of my hand, literally, it fits inside my hand. This to carry around with me just gives me a huge amount of confidence that whatever I've captured during the day on these things is now stored somewhere else, safe and secure, while I'm out shooting. And this then brings us on to the next point, which is redundancy only helps if we're storing that redundant data somewhere different. So there is no point in having a copy on this card, a copy on this card, a copy on my laptop, and a copy on my hard drive if I'm going to put all of that in one place. So if you're in a hotel, as we often are, spread that data around a bit. Carry some with you at all times. Leave some on your laptop at all times. Leave some in the memory cards at all times. Likewise, when you're traveling, I'll be the first photographer that's ever told you to do this, put your data in your checked baggage. And I don't mean the only copy of your data, but if you think about it, we're always worried about our checked baggage going missing, so of course you shouldn't put all of your data in your checked baggage. But I'm also worried about my carry-on baggage getting lost, stolen, damaged, whatever. So there's nothing wrong with having my memory cards and my laptop, say, in my carry-on baggage, and storing the hard drive with the backup of the content in my checked luggage. At least one of them's going to get there, and I know some person or some individual that I do know wishes they'd actually put a copy in their checked baggage. So from that perspective, think redundancy, and that's fine. Every single thing that you do while you haven't got access to a secure backup solution is at risk, or the content you're creating is at risk, and it's the content that we can't recreate. If my laptop gets stolen or damaged or set on fire, I can replace it, it's insured. If my camera gets damaged or dropped or lost, again, I can replace it, it's insured. The memory card itself, we can obviously replace. What I can't replace is the content on it. So the key thing here as a takeaway is please, 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 imagine that content is gold dust. That's the bit that you cannot replace. You cannot go to that same point in time in that exact same location in those exact same conditions and create that exact same photograph. So treat this like gold dust. Make sure you have a copy somewhere else, and that means that you're confident that at the point in time that you are able to get back to somewhere more stable and more secure, you know that you're going to have a copy of that data with you. So while we're out in the field, obviously we don't wait until we get back to do all our editing, so we might choose to do some editing while we're out in the field. I'm just going to load up on here, so we may have our phase 1 digital card in here. So this is all the content that I shot back in February. We'll create on our Extreme drive. So this is my SanDisk drive here. I've got a folder called Active, which I store a lot of edits in, raw files and final images. So let's go to raw files. In here, I'll keep a collection. It's a small collection, but it's of raw files that I might choose to continue editing over the next couple of weeks while I'm out. And it's also a folder in there for the current shoot that I'm on. So this one had Yosemite Winter. It's got the contents of these files. These files don't mean anything in terms of P0000996. What does mean something to me is this date format. And here's next handy tip. When you're creating folders for your raw files, in order to help you find them again easily in the future, create those folders with a certain format, which is year, month, day, and then name of shoot. I see a lot of people do it nicely with, 23rd of March 2020. I might see, April 7th 2019, whatever, or Harry's, Harry's hike, whatever, 2017. That's not going to help you in terms of finding those files in the future and very quickly. So I'm in a headspace that says the easiest thing I can do to identify those files is order them by the year, because I know roughly what year I shot them. Then I might do it by month, so we go largest to smaller to smallest in terms of year, month, day, and then I'll give it a name for the shoot. What that means is when I'm searching in my Finder, I can search by word, I can search for something with the word Yosemite in, but I can also order it by the year by just clicking on that name folder, or that name column. So in here we've got our Yosemite files. Throughout the shoot while we're out and about, I'll keep dragging all of these things across from the memory card into this external hard drive here. And then that hard drive is neatly filling up with the entire contents of the shoot, regardless of what's on each of those individual cards. When I get home, this never ever gets altered. it becomes an archive. And I actually have one of these for every single shoot or series of shoots that we've done. So we've got effectively a library of external hard drives. It means I don't need a library of all of the SD cards and XQD cards. These are actually cheaper than those cards. And they've actually got a lot more storage on them, so we can store edited versions of those files as well. So let's say we've loaded all that stuff up, and I work in a way where I use Capture One catalogs. So within each shoot that we do, let's go into here, you'll find a Capture One catalog. That catalog only relates to the files from that shoot, and in that catalog I might have a load of edits because I may have changed some of these files, and I also might have some TIFF exports as well for final images. So that catalog, while I'm out and about editing on my laptop, wonderful, it's growing, it's changing and so on. The second it gets back to me at home at base, that entire contents of that drive gets copied across to what we have is some network attached storage. So we've got some cloud solutions here, which then allow me to copy every single thing that I shot for that shoot into, again, its own folder on that drive. And that drive is then accessible in two different ways. One, to me locally here, back at the base. But two, remotely, if I really was pushed and I had a decent internet connection, of course I can then log on, access my own cloud, and pull down either the raw files or the final images that I wanted to see later on. So we brought those files back, they're back to base. I've copied across all the content from our external hard drive onto our network storage. That's great. But the first thing we're going to have to do when we load up this catalog when I get back to base is tell it where the files are, because they're no longer going to be held on that external storage. So if I go into the catalog, it's going to tell me that, because it's going to turn around and say that this file, for example, doesn't matter which one, is offline. The reason it's offline is because where we actually edited it in the first place, I was editing this one on my laptop, is no longer accessible. So we're going to right click on that folder for all of these files, go to locate, choose where the files are now stored, which is there, open, and we'll see this warning disappear. 75 issues down to no issues, hopefully in a second. We're going to see all of these appear and say, instead of offline, they're going to be online. There we are, no issues anymore. And all of my files are now there, ready to edit. This is going to be the home for those files forever. So they sit on our network attached storage. We've got a fast link to it on these computers themselves, but also when we're out and about, traveling or whatever, we can also access them across the internet and across the cloud. Now, there's a secondary step that we do here, maybe slightly different to what some of you do as well. If you don't have network attached storage, or more importantly, if you don't want to worry about having to deal with your own cloud and your own management of that security, you can use other services to manage this stuff. So you can use, for example, Dropbox. We also have Dropbox integration with this stuff. So we have a little batch job that runs every single night. Let me show you. I'm just going to screen share to another computer. So we have a little job that runs in a tool called ChronoSync. There are loads of backup solutions out there. But effectively what this says is whenever the external hard drives that we use out and about are connected, or every day, connect and replicate the content from our network attached storage across to our Dropbox folder. What that means is every night, effectively about 3 o'clock in the morning, everything that I've brought back from any shoot wherever I am is now replicated not only to the network attached storage, but it's also replicated up to that Dropbox, which means not only can I access it from wherever I want, what I can also do is share images, so share final images to someone without giving them a full access to our own network storage space. So I've got effectively 2 different ways of getting hold of a file, in fact 3. One is locally, obviously, we still obviously have all these files here. They're still on this drive, they're still on the memory cards. We also have it on a network attached storage, which means that there's a duplicate of it, of all those files, and the network attached storage is the one that we use as our primary access. It's got all the raw files, got all the final files, and that's the one that we're doing all our editing on. That then in turn is backed up separately, and it's also duplicated across to a Dropbox folder when we've created a final file, and those final images are then accessible to whoever we want to give access to. There's a final step. Again, if you really want to go even further than that, call me paranoid. We actually go one further, which is not only then do we have the images stored on the memory card onto an external drive, onto a network attached storage, which has its own redundancy built in, onto then a Dropbox account, and that is all backed up itself online. We also then, once every year, take a huge, great big offline backup. Exactly the same process applies here as it does to the memory cards, which is there is no point in creating this huge offline backup, and there's something like, I don't know, 40 terabytes or something inside of here. There's no point in doing that if I'm going to store this on my desk next to the primary versions. So this is about spreading out all of that risk. These memory cards we use as recyclable. We just keep shooting on memory cards, blank them, and then go again. Every shoot gets given its own archive drive. Whatever you want, if you want to go down this route of the traditional hard drive, these things are cheap as chips. You can go down this route of the slightly smaller ones. They're a little bit more expensive, but you can get half a terabyte, 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes. It doesn't really matter. You can go to these, which are a lot more portable, but a lot more expensive to do it as well. But have some sort of archive record that means you can release your memory cards for use again and again, but you have each shoot secure. That lot then obviously is taken onto our network attached storage here. All of those files and formats are done in a way that allow me to find them really easily. So if I go into our raw files, I can find things based on their name. So this one was 2020 03 04 Iceland, so 2020 March the 4th in Iceland. That allows me to search not only in Finder, but it also allows me to search within Capture One. All of that content, the raw files and the final files, are put onto our network attached storage, copied across the Dropbox, and then once a year we take a big backup, and this gets sent off-site. So we have the ability, hopefully, to withstand pretty much anything that's going to go on and going to go wrong. In terms of finding things, I mentioned about that naming convention. We have 2 versions of catalogs in Capture One. The first version is 1 catalog per shoot. I talked about that earlier. So in fact, even if I go into this Iceland one, we would see there's a catalog in here called Iceland Winter 2020. That catalog is only for this shoot. There is nothing else in that catalog. There's no other formats or files. That catalog has the originals, the raws, and it also has the TIFF files. On top of that, we have a separate catalog on top of all of these ones, which is our finals catalog. And that finals catalog is where we put anything that's been completely edited, corrected, finished, and ready for production. They get imported into one big finals catalog. That finals catalog is also then sat in that same place. Let's go on to final images, phase 1. There are our finals. So every image that we've created and produced as a final image is stored in there with its original file name, but also with its title. That means that not only can I access it from this computer and any computer we've got on our own network, but because it's also replicated up on the Dropbox, I can access it from that laptop should someone phone me from wherever I am in the world. So, summary. Number 1, buy a case for your memory cards. Protect those memory cards. They're the thing that are at most risk the second you start shooting out and about. Number 2, redundancy only works if you're going to keep things in 2 different places or more. We go a bit beyond that. We've got, in theory, 5 different places. You don't need to go to that level, but certainly keep things in 2 different places as quickly as you can. It doesn't mean... There are devices out there that you can plug in directly into... You put the memory card in, it will store it directly onto the hard drive. That's wonderful. That's great. If you can afford to do that, then wonderful. Do it. If you've got dual card shooting, then that helps to avoid the need for that. But find a way as quickly as possible of getting data off of one place and onto 2, and then store those things in 2 different locations. When you're traveling, think about separating that data into 2 different places that are going by 2 different methods. So it may be one in your check bag, one in your carry-on. It may be one on your person, one in your bag, whatever, but keep them separate. Otherwise, there's no point in having duplicates. Third, have a file format and have a file structure that works for you. For us, the easiest way of doing that is by date in terms of year, month, day, and then the shoot name. It means that I can sort by the date, I can find things really quickly, and I can search through catalogs for it. In terms of Capture One management, we use catalogs. Some people choose to use sessions. It doesn't really matter what way you want to do or do it. Personally, I would have 1 catalog per shoot because I'm having multiple days that I'm trying to bring into that 1 catalog, and I want to organize that entire shoot as one thing, and the catalog helps me do that. And then finally, We then put all of our final images, the things that we're happy with, the things that we've edited and are comfortable and ready to ship as products. They go into one big finals catalog, which is replicated onto all those systems as well. For us, we have network attached storage, we have Dropbox, and we also have all of our archive drives. For you, it may be that just having the memory card and an external hard drive is perfectly adequate. It may be that you want to do 2 or 3 of those different options. The way that we do it, don't get me wrong, is an expensive solution, but it means that I can always be sure I can always access anything I've ever shot, and anything that I have shot is safe and secure. Different levels of security are going to come at different price points. It's up to you what investment you want to make. But certainly, absolutely have more than one copy of everything that you've shot and have it somewhere safe and secure. Hopefully that hasn't made you too paranoid about shooting. The whole point of this is to be confident that when you go out there and you start clicking the button, that it's always for something good at the end of it, and you're never going to be in a position where you're sat and thinking, oh my God, I've lost all of my stuff that I shot this morning. This is about giving you the confidence that whatever you've shot is safe, secure, easy to find, and easy to get hold of should you need it in 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, 10 years time. That's it for me. Hope that made sense. If there are any questions or whatever, then please do feel free to send them through. Failing that, we'll catch you later on.